Andrew Mitchell, we've seen the developments overnight. As Shadow Foreign Secretary, if you were Foreign Secretary, what advice would you be giving now in terms of how the world should respond to the events we've seen?
Well, I think you have to recognise that Israel has the right of self-defence against Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a terrorist organisation like Al-Qaeda or ISIL. It's prescribed in Britain, and this organisation is lobbing shells into northern Israel, killing its people. They are forcing tens of thousands of people to go south. They can't get access to their homes because this terrorist organisation is lobbing shells over the border. Now, in those circumstances, what do you think the British government would do? What do you think any government which has the power to do something about it would do? The answer is they would do what the Israelis are doing, which is to degrade and push back Hezbollah to the point where they're no longer a threat. So my strong advice would be that Hezbollah should abide by the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, which is to withdraw behind the Litani River. But I very much hope they will suffer the same fate as ISIL and Al-Qaeda did when their leaders were toppled. Israel has toppled the leader of Hezbollah now, and I hope very much those people will turn their swords into plowshares and do something more constructive.
Are you concerned that we are looking now at escalation to a full Middle East war between Iran and Israel?
No, I hope very much that what will happen is that Hezbollah will be degraded to the point where they're no longer a threat to Israel. That is in everyone's interest. And of course, it's different from 2006 and previous struggles because the technical ability of the Israelis now to deal with offensive weaponry from Hezbollah that is scattered around southern Lebanon is far, far greater than it was then, and to do it in a surgical way. And I hope that's what will happen.
What about Israel being now in never-ending conflict? It hasn't been able to achieve its target of routing Hamas in Gaza in particular. It has now launched incursions into Lebanese territory to try and defeat Hezbollah. We have seen since 1978, I understand your point about the technology changing, but since 1978, Israel has been trying to secure its northern border unsuccessfully, often got trapped in southern Lebanon and then had to withdraw. Isn't Israel in danger of being in a number of unwinnable conflicts?
I think the position may be the reverse of that. I think that the action they are taking in Lebanon now might lend itself to a longer-term solution. You'll have seen what the foreign minister of Lebanon said yesterday, on Monday, about the willingness to look at a comprehensive solution of many, many Arab states. What Britain needs to do, and which I think is doing with reasonable conviction and force, is to try and lift people's eyes to the possibility of a comprehensive political solution. Never forget that the darkest hour is the hour before dawn. When this terrible conflict is over and the guns are silenced, maybe there will be the will to move towards, on the basis of the Abraham Accords, a comprehensive solution to this issue which has poisoned the well of opinion, not just in the Middle East, but throughout the world for so many years now. And don't forget that the progress that was made at Oslo was on the back of the Intifada. So I think Britain trying to make sure that all these different parts focus on the day after, focus on a political solution. That's terribly important.
Do you worry when you talk about poisoning the well that for many people this has poisoned the well against Israel, that many people are attacking Israel for its actions and the deaths of many, many tens of thousands of civilians?
Well, I spoke at the party conference on Sunday night about the blood libels that are being perpetrated, about the way in which Israel is being demonized in a way which I think is way beyond the reality. And there's no doubt that the level of poison today is terribly high. But that is why it's so important to look to the future, to the possibility of a settlement. Once you start to get a political framework and people engage with that rather than fighting, then all things are possible. It's how we get to the point that the guns are silenced and you move into a political process, which should be preoccupying all of us.
Does it need to have a ceasefire first, which is what Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has asked for?
I don't think it's sensible to. I don't think it's practical. Of course, we all want de-escalation, and we'd all like to see a ceasefire. But given the position of Hezbollah lobbing shells over the border into Israel, and the fact that Israel has a right to self-defense to look after its citizens, I just think that just at the moment a ceasefire is quite fanciful. But do I want to see de-escalation of the conflict and the guns silenced? Of course I do.
For many of the public watching this and seeing the pictures of the events overnight, it does seem particularly frightening that there could be even greater conflict in the Middle East. Do you think that this will now just ratchet up? Because Iran is going to have to, or will try to respond in the most aggressive way imaginable, given the deaths within Hezbollah, the Hezbollah leader. They're going to respond, and more martyrs are going to be created, and more conflict is ahead.
Well, I think that if you look at what the president of Iran said at the United Nations, if you look at some of the things that Iran has said about Hezbollah and Hamas being separate, they're not, of course, separate, they are proxies of Iran, but the words that they have used, I don't think it's fanciful to hope that the conflict can be contained where it is at the moment. But if Iran were unwise enough to launch an attack on Israel, Israel is our ally. We have their back on that. British military personnel and weaponry was used a few weeks ago when Iran launched 300 missiles towards Israel. America has moved military forces into the region. Iran would be most unwise to widen the conflict in that way, and I very much hope they won't.
Do you worry that we have sent the wrong type of signal to Israel by constraining some of our military supplies to Israel?
Well, I don't think the case for the arms embargo has been well made by the government, and it is pretty extraordinary when British military personnel and weaponry have been used to defend Israel, to talk in terms of an arms embargo. The great thing about the relationship that Britain has with Israel, which is a key ally and friend of ours, is that we are able to give them our candid advice as their critical friend, often behind the scenes. And I've seen what Rishi Sunak and David Cameron did when they were respectively Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary, making clear what Britain's advice is. And that's the important part of a relationship, that you can do that. So I was quite surprised when this very limited arms embargo was introduced. It seemed to me that it was Labour trying to pacify their backbenchers without over-irritating Israel, and I'm not sure they achieved either of those two effects.
Andrew Mitchell, thank you very much.
Thank you.